Next, I'd like to talk about three general ways of finding the features that are inside an area or multiple area. These methods, again, depend on the actual analytical data and results you're expecting. Now we're talking about more technical issue as to if you know which one that you're going to do and how you're going to do that. The first method applies to the case that you just want to look at whether there's certain features inside the area and just get a general idea of how much. You don't need a very accurate report in that case. So that's more kind of exploratory understanding. In this case, you don't really need to do too much of the calculation. Instead, what you do is to highlight or make sure that the area of your study are very clearly indicated and represented on your map. And then you just overlay your features, targeted features, on top of that area. And that will give the reader a clear idea of whether there is things there or inside or generally how much. In particular, this example, we have this map showing the business location, the red flag representing the location of the business, and then we have a Maple Township. And the question is, do we have a good number of business in Maple Township? Okay, if you overlay these two layers on top of each other and visualize on the screen, we can clearly see, well, yeah, there's a very good number. Actually, they are distributed quite evenly across the township. Yeah. The first methods we just talked about give you just ballpark idea, but it doesn't give you any concrete report on numbers. If you do need some kind of count or summarize of the values, then you need to use the methods 2 or 3. Okay, so methods 2 basically says you can actually do selection of the features by the areas we are interested, and then we can report back a list, okay, or we can summarize them in certain way. Okay. So it is good that if we have the discrete features and we know the area that we want to count or summarize. In ArcGIS, we have a command called select by location, and that will be the tools we're going to use to do the analysis on what's inside. There's a number of spatial relationships we can cover later, but this method is most powerful. Here is an example of using ArcGIS to select the crimes inside a particular district. What you do is that you go on the menu, and there's a menu called selection. There's a second category, select by location. That's the command you're going to call upon. After you click on that, you're going to get a dialog box that allows you to indicate what are the source feature that you want to select. For example, this district. Okay, you're going to select from this particular crime, and then the source feature is the district. Right? And then we have to indicate whether we want to just count the number of crime, or we want to do something else, okay, or want to report back a list of those crimes. Right? Anyway, these are available for detailed reporting. The third method is doing geometric overlay of aerial features. In this case, we need to calculate the situation that the target feature overlapping partially with the source feature, and we only want to take into account the part of that feature that is in. In this case, we have to manipulate the geometry. So the way we do that is to cut those features into half or into separate pieces so that we can clearly separate what piece of that is inside, what piece of that is outside. Okay? For example, we talk about the parcels in the floodplain. So we want to know exactly what part of the parcel is inside the floodplain and what part is outside of the floodplain, so that we can count the amount of value, for example, the land value that is going to be impacted by a certain flood. Right? So this method is most computationally intensive, but you can get much better results, more refined results. You do need to have the analytical tools to do overlay. Okay, a lot of the geographic information system come with the overlay functions. In order to do that, you have to define the source area that you want to do overlay with, for example, the flooded area, and you want to find out what are the target features, right? Maybe the parcels, maybe it's other things. Right? If you know those, and then you have the GIS methods available, then you can calculate this. Okay? You're going to get more split of the polygons into smaller ones. After the overlay, you most likely have to do some aggregation, some summary or reporting in order to get expected results. So we're going to cover the operation of doing map overlay in topic 10. So what we're going to do this moment is to understand in what case we want to do or need to do map overlay. Right? And this lecture we're going to focus on only the first two methods, the select by location. Map overlay is perhaps one of the most powerful functions in geographic information system, especially when you do spatial analysis. Let's take an example and appreciate the power. For example, we have this floodplain defined as an area, and then we have the parcels overlay on top, and we know some of the parcels are partially intersect with this floodplain. So the question is, what is the total square footage of each type of the parcels that are inside the floodplain? Right? In order to answer that question, we need to figure out for each parcel which piece are inside, which piece are outside. So if there's a boundary cutting across, we need to split those parcels into one or more or two or more pieces. Right? So map overlay will generate this intermediate result. It will definitely output a new map layer and have all these polygons split it into smaller ones. But it doesn't really give you the result automatically. With this overlay result, then you can actually look at the attribute table and calculate your report by doing summary or manipulation of the attributes table of the overlay results. Right? The floodplain and parcel are mutually intersecting. They are not completely overlapping. They're partially inside, and also we need to count for numbers that is only effective inside the affected area, the floodplain. So this is the kind of a typical case we want to do overlay. Okay, remember, if we don't need to count the total square footage, or if we just want to know how many numbers of the parcels affected, we don't have to do overlay. We can just simply do a select by area, select by location.